Hey everyone, I hope you all are safe and doing good. So in the series of learning Python programming language, we are discussing types of inheritance. Till now we have discussed single inheritance, multiple inheritance and multi-level inheritance, right? So the next is hierarchical inheritance. This thing we'll see in this video with the help of proper example, right? So what is hierarchical inheritance? See, in single inheritance, one parent class, one child class. In multiple inheritance, we have more than one parent class and one child class, right? In multi-level, we can also derive, or the child class can inherit properties, or you can say attributes or methods from a derived class as well. That is multi-level inheritance. Hierarchical inheritance means level, we can also derive, or the child class can inherit properties, or you can say attributes or methods from a derived class as well. That is multi-level inheritance. Hierarchical inheritance means, now we have one parent class, and from this class you can derive multiple child class, child 1, child 2 up to n. So this is hierarchical inheritance, right? Like our father or our parent and son and daughter, like this. So from one parent to child, like this, or two or more than two child, means more than one child. One parent and more than one child, it can be any number of child. So this type of thing is known as hierarchical inheritance, right? Now let's see with the help of program. Okay, so let's create a new file, hierarchical inheritance.py. So we'll take one class. Okay, you can write down this thing also, right? And because here the root class or the base class, all the classes are object class, right? Now we can use some built-in functions and properties of object class, that is super, and class, right? File female, and so let's print this line as well in female. It is showing the detail name, class, same base class from same human class, right? So I hope you got what is hierarchical inheritance. So one assignment for you is, now see, you have to create one super classes. You can take a person class, person, you can take some attribute there, two attribute and two methods. And like in a university, we are having student as well as faculty, both are person or maybe human. So from person class you are driving student class, and one more is faculty class, right? And student class is having its own one more attribute and its method, and faculty class is also having its own some attributes and methods, right? So you have to create like these two classes, right? And you have to
Hey everybody, so today we got to talk about both multiple and multi-level inheritance. We'll begin with multiple inheritance. That's when a child class inherits from more than one parent class. For example, a class of C can inherit the traits from both class A and B. In Python, you can have more than one parent. Multi-level inheritance we'll talk about near the end of this topic. So in this parent, multi-level inheritance we'll talk about near the end of this topic. So in this example, we're going to create two parent classes, prey, I'll write pass for now, and predator. We'll create a class of rabbit. For example, a class of C can inherit the traits from both class A and B. In Python, you can have more than one parent. Multi-level inheritance we'll talk about near the end of this topic. So in this example, we're going to create two parent classes, prey, I'll write pass for now, and predator. We'll create a class of rabbit, a class of hawk, then class fish. Rabbit, hawk, and fish are going to be children classes. Prey and predator will be parents. If one of these classes, rabbit, hawk, or fish, inherit from prey, they get the ability to flee. We will define a method of flee. Let's say if you're an animal, you get a method to eat. All animals will eat. Print this animal is eating. And fish and to eat. So we need to add animal to each inheritance list. Let's say if you're an animal, you get a method to eat. All animals will eat. Print this animal is eating. And you can sleep. Define sleep. Print this animal is sleeping. So think of rabbit, hawk, and fish as children classes.
Hi, myself Himanshi Jain, Major 24, my height is size 6 and vision profiles. Available on the shoe dates and no competitive. Thank you.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back. Welcome back to another Code with Kylie video. I'm Kylie and I'm still
access the superclass attribute methods, the person class attributed method with the help of student object as well as faculty object. So this is your
Hey everybody, how's it going? In this video, we'll be learning how to work with dates within Python. Now, it's extremely important to know how to work with dates because you're going to be using these in just about every type of application that you're going to write. And dates can sometimes be overwhelming because there's so much to think about. So, for example, in Python, we have dates, times, date times, time zones, time deltas, and it's not really obvious when we should use
every resource about Git or Git
what. So let's go ahead and dive in and look at some examples of this to get more comfortable. So the main module for working with dates in Python is the datetime module, and we can import that just by saying import datetime. Now the first thing to talk about when working with dates and times is understanding the difference between naive and aware date times, and you'll hear these two terms a lot. Understanding the difference between naive and aware date times. And you'll hear these two terms a lot. Now, naive dates and times don't have enough information to determine things like time zone or daylight savings times, but they're easier to work with if you don't need that level of detail. But if you do need that level of detail to avoid confusion, then you need to use aware dates and times. Now, these do have enough information to determine their time zone and keep track of daylight savings time. Now, since naive date times are the easiest to work with, we'll start off by looking at those first. So first, let's look at datetime.date. So with a normal date, we're going to be working with a year, month, and day. Now there are a couple of different ways that we can create a date, but to create a date right now, I'm just going to do a datetime.date, and I'm going to pass in a year, a month, and a day. So now let's go ahead and print this out so we can see what this looks like. So you can see that when we printed that out, that it gave us a date of 2016-07-24. Now, when you're creating these dates, be sure to just pass in regular integers as the days and months with no leading zero. Because if we were to pass in 07 here and run that, you can see that this gave us a syntax error. And I make this mistake a lot myself because when I write down dates, I'm used to adding in that leading zero, but that's not the correct way to pass it in. So just do, for single digits, just do that single digit, and you can see that that works. Now we do have other ways of creating dates also. So if I wanted to get today's local date, then I'm just going to call this today. And instead of doing this constructor here, I'm just going to do date.today. So now I'm just going to go ahead and grab this variable name here, and let's go ahead and print that out. So when I print that out, you can see that we got the current local date. Now we also have some methods available to get more information about our dates. So if I wanted to grab just the year, month, or day, then, so for example, if I wanted to grab just the year, I could say today.year. And if I wanted to grab just the day, then I could do day. Now we can also get the day of the week, and there's actually two different ways that we can use this. So we can either use weekday or we can use ISO weekday. So if I go ahead and print this out, you can see that for one, we get a 1, and for the other one, we get a 2. So the only difference here is that for the weekday, Monday is 0 and Sunday is 6. And for the ISO weekday, Monday is 1 and Sunday is 7. So the current day where I am now, it is Tuesday. So you can see that for the weekday, we got a 1, which if Monday is 0, then Tuesday, that would be correct. And for the ISO weekday, Monday is 1, so Tuesday would be 2, so that's correct also. Okay, so now let's take a look at time deltas. Now, time deltas are simply the difference between two dates or times, and they're extremely useful when we want to do operations on our dates or times. So for example, let me create a time delta 1 week away, which would be 7 days. So I'm going to do a time delta is equal to date time dot time delta, and I'm just going to pass in a duration here of days equal to 7. So now I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of these two print statements here. So now that I have this duration of 7 days, I can use this to do some calculations. So let's say that I wanted to print out what the date will be 1 week from now. So what I can do here is I can just do a print, and I'm going to print out today plus this time delta, which would be 7 days. So if I run that, then you can see that it prints out what the date will be 7 days from now. Now you can also subtract time deltas also. So if I wanted to know what the date was 1 week ago, then instead of adding on 7 days, I can subtract 7 days. And if I print that out, then you can see that it prints out what the date was 1 week ago. Okay, so right now we are adding and subtracting a time delta from a date and getting another date as the result. Now, if we instead add or subtract a date from a date, then we'll get a time delta as the result. And so that's kind of important to see the difference there. So if I make a comment here so that we can better visualize this. So let me do time delta, and let me also make another comment here, but change a few things around. Okay, so this comment will make what I just said here a little bit easier to visualize. So if we add or subtract a time delta from a date, then we get another date as a result. And if we add or subtract another date from a date, then we'll get a time delta as a result. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example of this. So let's figure out how many days there are until my birthday this year. So to calculate that, we're going to have to do is subtract the current date from the date of my birthday this year. So I'm going to create a new date here called B-Day. I'm going to set that equal to datetime.date, and it's going to be the year 2016, and my birthday is on 9/24. So now I'm going to create another variable here, and I'm going to call this till B-Day. Now this is going to be a time delta once we run this calculation, and I'm going to month or dot
Alright everybody, so in today's video we're going to create a working alarm clock using Python. For this project we will need the following imports. We will import time. We'll be updating our clock every second. The time module is going to help us with that. As well as import date time. The date time module allows us to work with string representations of a time. In my opinion, the easiest way to work with sound effects is to actually use Pygame. so we will import Pygame. Now you may need to download the Pygame package. Here I'm getting a message that there's no module named Pygame. There might be a link to install it even too. One way in which you can download the Pygame package is to open up a terminal, then use pip. Pip is Python's package manager. Pip install Pygame. Alright, we have our 3 imports. Let's create a function to set alarm. We have one parameter, an alarm time. And for now, I'll write pass. Our alarm time parameter is going to be a string representation of a time in military time. I would like to start this program if I am running my main Python file directly. I can add the following if statement. If dunder name is equal to a string of dunder main. If we are running this main Python file directly, then we will set the alarm. But first we have to prompt the user what they would like to set the alarm to. So we will define a variable of alarm time equals ask for some user input using the input function. We will prompt the user to enter the alarm time and give a format. Hours, minutes, and seconds. Again, this is going to be in military time. Once we have our alarm time, we will call the setAlarm function and pass in our alarm time. Alright, we are now within the setAlarm function. When we call this function, let's print the following. I'll use an f-string. Alarm set for, then include the alarm time. You will need an MP3 file to work with. If you don't have one available, here's one recommendation. You could use YouTube's audio library, and then search for sound effects or some music. These audio files are only allowed for non-commercial use outside of YouTube. So you can search for a song or some sound effects, find one that you like, and download it. Once you find a song that you like, move it to your project folder. Now, I will create a variable of sound file equals. This will be a relative or absolute file path. My MP3 file is right next to my main Python file. I only need to list the file name. I named mine My Music, and this is an MP3 file. I'm going to perform a test run. We're not going to play our sound quite yet. We do have this output that displays that says hello from the Pygame community. Let's say I set my alarm to 9 a.m. Then enter, alarm set for 9 a.m. If you would like to suppress this output for Pygame, we can navigate to our virtual environment, go to Library, Pygame, underneath this file named dunder-init. Let's scroll all the way to the bottom, and we should have this if statement. We display the version of Pygame we're using, and a print statement of hello from the Pygame community. We could comment this out, or even just delete it. That is the most simple solution. So we shouldn't get that message anymore. We're going to create a Boolean variable of isRunning. Is our alarm clock running? I will set that to be true. While isRunning, while this is true, we will continue the alarm clock. We need to get the current time. Current time equals, we will access the datetime module, access the class of datetime. Call the now method to get the time and date. Method strf time. Call the now method to get the time and date right now. We could method chain the string format method strf time. would like the hours, minutes, and seconds, but not the date. So we will type %h, colon, let me zoom out a little, %m for minutes, and %s for seconds. We're getting the hours, minutes, and seconds of the date and time right now, and storing it within this variable of current time. Then I'm going to print the current time. We'll perform a test run. However, currently we're within an infinite loop. At the end of the while loop, I'll set isRunning to be false. Okay, enter the alarm time. Let's say 10 a.m. Alarm set for 10 a.m. And the time for me right now is 9:42 and 16 seconds. We'll get rid of this line where we set isRunning to be false. Instead, I'm going to access the time module and call the sleep method. We will pass in a number of seconds to sleep, so 1 second. I'll set the alarm to be 10 a.m. Now the time should update every second, which it is. However, when the current time is equal to the alarm time, we have to trigger the alarm. So after printing the current time, we will write an if statement to check if the current time is equal to the alarm time. If this is true, then let's print the following. Wake up. And I'll add an emoji, because it's silly. Once our alarm triggers, we will set isRunning to be false within this if statement. Let's do a test run. We're not going to play the sound quite yet. I will set the alarm to 9:45. And then I'll come back a little bit later. Alright. Once the current time matches the alarm time, we print wake up and set isRunning to be false to exit the while loop, and then subsequently exiting the program. Now we need to play an MP3 file. We will access our package of Pygame, access the module of Mixer. So Mixer is a module for loading and playing sounds, but we have to initialize it. But we're going to initialize it with init to initialize. The initialize method is another way to call the constructor. We can pass in some keyword arguments for the frequency, size, channels, buffer, all that, but that might be a little too complicated for us at this level. We'll use the default settings by not passing in anything. The next step is to load. We have to initialize the game, access the module of Mixer. So Mixer is a module for loading and playing sounds, but we have to initialize it. But we're going to initialize it with init to initialize. The initialize method is another way to call the constructor. We can pass in some keyword arguments for the frequency, size, channels, buffer, all that, but that might be a little too complicated for us at this level. We'll use the default settings by not passing in anything. The next step is to load our sound file, access the package of Pygame, access the module of Mixer, access the module of music, then call the load method. We will load our sound file. Our sound file contains the file path to our MP3 file. Once we load our music, we have to play it. Pygame.mixer.music, called the play method. Our MP3 file is only going to play for a brief second. I'll demonstrate that. I will set the alarm to 9:49 and just give it a few seconds. our sound file stops playing when the program terminates, what we need to do next is continue playing our sound file while that sound file is busy. We will add a while loop. While access pygame dot mixer dot music, call the get busy method. This returns a boolean. If our song is busy, if it's still playing, then we will call the time module's sleep method and sleep for 1 second. Once the song finishes, or we terminate the program prematurely, the sound file will no longer be busy. So this should be the finished product. Let's test it. I will set the alarm for 9:52, and we just have to give it some time. So yeah, I'm going to talk about multi-threading in Python today. Multi-threading is used to perform multiple tasks concurrently. Think of it like we're multitasking. We're performing a few different actions at once. For example, I could study and listen to music and eat something at the same time. Multi-threading is good for I/O-bound tasks, I/O meaning input-output, such as reading files or fetching data from an API, things that may take some time to do, and we don't know when it's going to end exactly. To use multi-threading, we'll import the threading module. Import threading. We access the threading module, then call the thread constructor, and pass in a target function. What we'll do for this demonstration, let's say we have a bunch of chores to do. We have to walk the dog, get the mail, and take out the trash. Let's define some functions to handle that. We have a function to walk the dog. Then I will print the following message. You finish walking the dog. Let's create a function to take out trash.
One way to increase your net worth is to use the internet for all it's worth. Everywhere you look, computer-savvy people are doing just that. Many of them astonishingly young. Our cover story is reported now by David Pogue of the New York Times.
Remember that old New Yorker cartoon? On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. But in the real world, some of the internet's most influential and successful forces have their own version of that line. On the internet, nobody knows you're a teenager.
I started Netscape when I was 14. Basically, I had an internship there.
Meet Blake Ross. By the ripe old age of 19, he had co-written a new web browser called Firefox. It's so good, 50 million people installed it in its first 6 months, and it stole 10% of the market away from Microsoft's browser, Internet Explorer.
We want you to start up the web browser and be able to surf the web without worrying about spyware, without worrying about viruses, without worrying about pop-up ads.
Firefox is free, but 21-year-old Mark Zuckerberg turned his little web experiment into a very big business. It's called thefacebook.com, and it's like no college directory you've ever seen.
For example, you can take a person and look them up, and you can get a picture of how they'd like to portray themselves in addition to, say, the courses that they're taking, sports teams, clubs that they're a part of, and who their friends are at the school. But I think that there's a lot of times where people will just go out, meet someone, say, okay, I don't know that much about this person, and they'll go back to their room and do what people call Facebook them, which is go on the Facebook and look them up just to kind of see the snapshot of what they have.
In less than 1 year, thefacebook.com has become an addictive part of everyday college life.
We've gone from having around 150,000 people in the fall to right around 3 million now. So it's pretty cool.
But not as cool as this, $13 million of investment capital.
we get a lot of feedback saying like how much people love the site. I get a couple of marriage proposals each day.
32.
Robin Liss is a junior at Tufts University. She runs camcorderinfo.com, the internet's #1 source of camcorder information and reviews. She posted her first article online when she was 10.
I was playing around with my mom's huge Panasonic VHS camcorder making claymation videos. I wrote an article on how to make a video for under $100, and like 70 people read it, and I was like, whoa, this is the coolest thing ever.
Her audience is slightly bigger today.
Camcorderinfo.com is the largest camcorder review publication in the United States, online or off. We reach about 300,000 people every single month.
Finally, meet Wayne Chang. He's the creator of I2 Hub, a super high-speed communications network that lets college students across the country
Then we will print, you take out the trash. Then another function of get mail, as in get the mail from the mailbox. Then I will print, you get the mail. Just to simulate these functions taking an indeterminate amount of time, I'm going to import the time module to help us. Let's say walking the dog takes 8 seconds. I will access the time module, call the sleep method, and pass in 8 for 8 seconds. When we call the walk dog function, we'll wait around for 8 seconds, then finish walking the dog. This chore will take quite a bit of time to complete. Taking out the trash, it's fairly quick. Taking out the trash will take 2 seconds. Getting the mail will take 4 seconds. Let's call these functions and see what happens. We will begin by walking the dog. I will call the walk dog function, followed by take out trash function, and the get mail function. Here's the result. We're going to wait around for 8 seconds until the walk dog function is complete. right about now. You finish walking the dog, you take out the trash, and you get the mail. These functions are running on the same thread, the main thread, our main Python program. We have to complete these chores in order, one by one, because they're all running on functions. You finish walking the dog, you take out the trash, and you get the mail. These functions are running on the same thread, the main thread, our main Python program. We have to complete these chores in order, one by one, because they're all running on the same thread. Instead of walking the dog, and then when we're done, taking out the trash, and then when that's done, we get the mail. We could accomplish all three tasks at the same time. Let's say we have a thread object. We could say thread 1, or to be more descriptive, let's say we have chore 1. Let me zoom in a little bit. Chore 1 is going to contain a thread. We will access the threading module, call the constructor for a thread. We have to pass in a keyword argument of target. What is the first chore that we have to do? Let's walk the dog. To start this thread, we will take our thread object of chore 1 and call the start method to start it. Okay, let's do this with chore 2. Access the threading module, call the thread constructor, pass in a target, then the name of a function, take out trash, chore2.start. And then we have chore 3. I'll just copy what we have, because I'm feeling lazy. Chore 3 will be get mail. Here's the result now. Here's the result. We're going to wait around for 8 seconds until functions are running on the same. You finish walking the dog, you take out the trash, and you get the mail. These functions are running on the same thread, the main thread, our main Python program. We have to complete these chores in order, one by one, because they're all running on the same thread. Instead of walking the dog, and then when we're done, taking out the trash, and then when that's done, we get the mail. Main thread, our main Python. These functions are running on the same thread, the main thread, our main Python program. We have to complete these chores in order, one by one, because they're all running on the same thread. Instead of walking the dog, and then when we're done, taking out the trash, and then when that's done, we get the mail. We could accomplish all 3 tasks at the same time. Let's say we have a thread object. We could say thread 1, or to be more descriptive, let's say we have chore 1. Let me zoom in a little bit. Chore 1 is going to contain a thread. We will access the threading module, call the constructor for a thread. We have to pass in a keyword argument of target. What is the first chore that we have to do? Let's walk the dog. To start this thread, we will take our thread object of chore 1 and call the start method to start it. Okay, let's do this with chore 2. Access the threading module. Call the thread constructor, pass in a target, then the name of a function, take out trash. Chore2 dot start. And then we have chore 3. I'll just copy what we have, because I'm feeling lazy. Chore 3 will be get mail. Here's the result now. We finish taking out the trash first. Then we get the mail. Then we finish walking the dog. So we're executing these functions concurrently. We're multitasking. We're taking out the trash and getting the mail and walking the dog all at the same time. One thing that I did want to point out, notice how we finished taking out the trash first, followed by getting the mail, then walking the dog. These tasks finished in a different order compared to when we weren't multi-threading. That's because taking out the trash finished first. It took 2 seconds, getting the mail took 4 seconds, and walking the dog took the longest. It took 8 seconds. Previously, we finished walking the dog first, then took out the trash, then got the mail. When all the chores are complete, I would like to print a message. I will print the following. All chores are complete. Here's what happens currently. We get this message that all chores are complete, but we haven't finished any yet. We're still completing them. There may be at times you want your program to wait for all threads to finish. Before we print that confirmation message that all chores are complete, we're going to use the join method. Take each thread, use the join method. We'll do this with chore 2. We'll wait for these threads to finish. With the join method, we will wait for these threads to finish before continuing with the rest of the program. Here's the result now. You take out the trash, you get the mail, and you finish walking the dog. All chores are complete. Here's what happened. I would like to print a message. Are complete. Here's what happens currently. We get this message that all chores are complete, but we haven't finished any yet. We're still completing them. There may be at times you want your program to wait for all threads to finish. Before we print that confirmation message that all chores are complete, we're going to use the join method. Take each thread, use the join method. We'll do this with chore 2 and chore 3 as well. With the join method, we will wait for these threads to finish before continuing with the rest of the program. Here's the result now. You take out the trash, you get the mail, and you finish walking the dog. All chores are complete. When constructing a thread object, and we have a keyword argument of target, if some of these functions take parameters, for example, with the function of walk dog, let's say we have a first name. I will convert this print statement to an F string. We will display first for the first name. You finish walking whatever your dog's name is. So when we're creating a thread and the target is that function, and that function accepts arguments, we need one more keyword argument, and that is args. We will send this function a tuple. We need a set of parentheses. Within this tuple, we will list our arguments. Let's say that our dog's first name is Scooby. Now, since this is a tuple, if we only have one argument, we have to end that tuple with a comma to let Python know that this is a tuple. Here's the result. You take out the trash, you get the mail, you finish walking Scooby. All chores are complete. If we were missing this comma, this is what would happen. We're no longer passing in a tuple. What if we have multiple parameters? We have first for first name, and last for last name. You finish walking, first and last. We have first name of Scooby, last name of Do. You take out the trash, finish walking Scooby-Doo. All chores are complete. Alright everybody, so that is multi-threading. It's used to perform multiple tasks concurrently, as if we're multitasking. We're executing multiple functions at the same time. Multi-threading is good for I/O-bound tasks, such as reading files or fetching data from APIs. And well everybody, that is an introduction to multi-threading. In Python. Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how we can connect to an API using Python. In this demonstration, we're going to connect to the Poke API to get some information on a Pokemon of our choosing. I'm assuming that most of us are familiar with Pokemon. I thought it'd be a fun example. So according to this API, we can look up a Pokemon, such as Pikachu. Then we can get the stats for Pikachu, such as Pikachu's name, height, ID number, and all sorts of moves and abilities that a Pikachu may have. We will need this URL, but we'll handle that later. Our first step is that we're going to import the requests library to make an API request. However, when I run this, I have a module not found error, no module named requests. Requests is one package we'll have to install. It's not normally included with the standard Python download. If I was to go to my project folder, go to my virtual environment, library, site packages, there is no package for requests. We'll have to download that. With PyCharm and VS Code, there is a built-in terminal that we can use. To download the requests package, we can use pip. Pip is a package manager for Python. It's normally included when you install Python. We'll type pip install requests. It'll take just a second. And now we have that package of requests within our project folder. If I run this again, that error goes away. Process finished with execode 0. That means there were no errors. Going back to our Pokemon API, we will need this URL. Let me zoom in so you can see it. I'm going to store that as a base URL, so it's easier to work with. For convenience, I'm going to create a function name. Get Pokemon info. To get some info on a Pokemon, we'll have to pass in the name of a Pokemon. For now, I'll write pass. Outside of this function, let's say we have a variable of Pokemon name. Pick a Pokemon. I will pick Pikachu for now. Then I will call the getPokemonInfo function. Then pass in my Pokemon name. Remember that your parameters can be named different than your arguments. When you send data to a function, you can rename it to something else, temporarily. Now that we have the name of the Pokemon we would like to look up, we can complete the URL. This will be an f-string. So with our Pokemon API, we have the base URL, followed by the word Pokemon, then the name of a Pokemon. So we have the base URL. I'll add a placeholder and insert it, / the word Pokemon, / the name of that Pokemon. In this example, it's going to be Pikachu. We now have the full URL. We'll access the request module, go to my virtual environment,
left in this $1 million hackathon. If you come to this URL here, you will find the world's largest hackathon. The only countries that are... If you're interested in quantitative financial analysis, but did you know that if you come to this URL here, you can get free access to a ton of solar system data? And this is going to include a bunch of planets. If you're interested, did you know that if you come to this URL here, you can get free access to a ton of solar system data. And this is going to include a bunch of planets and all of their moons, dwarf planets, and even major asteroids. There is a ton of additional information on these objects like the dimensions, gravity, temperature, as well as a bunch of information on its orbital characteristics. So if I just click on the documentation here, I can find the base URL and then the end point to get a list.
సిద్ధు చెప్పు ఆ? ఆ. ఏ వస్తున్నాను వచ్చాను బ్రెడ్ మర్చిపోయానమ్మా రేపు తెస్తాలే లేకపోతే ఇప్పుడు అటు వెళ్తాను అక్క పక్క తెస్తానులే కూరకి వెళ్తాను కదా కూరకి వెళ్తాను కదా అక్కడ తెస్తాలే సరే సరే ఓకే
of I'm hosting a data analysis. AI can now fake voices, faces. If you come to this URL here, you can get started learning how to use Python for data science and analytics. I've talked about this resource. Did you know that if you come to this URL here, you can find links to a
Three things you cannot outrun in this world, folks. Death, taxes, and me. Commander on this off. It's Philip Graves. Call sign, Shadow.
Environment, library, site packages. There is no package for requests. we'll have to download that. With PyCharm and VS Code, there is a built-in terminal that we can use. To download the request package, we can use pip. Pip is a package manager for Python. It's normally included when you install Python. We'll type pip install requests. It'll take just a second. And now we have that package of requests within our project folder. If I run this again, that error goes away. Process finished with Xcode 0. That means there were no errors. Going back to our Pokemon API, we will need this URL. Let me zoom in so you can see it. I'm going to store that as a base URL, so it's easier to work with. For convenience, I'm going to create a function name. Get Pokemon info. To get some info on a Pokemon, we'll have to pass in the name of a Pokemon. For now, I'll write pass. Outside of this function, let's say we have a variable of Pokemon name. Pick a Pokemon. I will pick Pikachu for now. Then I will call the getPokemonInfo function. Then pass in my Pokemon name. Remember that your parameters can be named different than your arguments. When you send data to a function, you can rename it to something else, temporarily. Now that we have the name of the Pokemon we would like to look up, we can complete the URL. This will be an f-string. So with our Pokemon API, we have the base URL, followed by the word Pokemon, then the name of a Pokemon. So we have the base URL. I'll add a placeholder and insert it, / the word Pokemon, / the name of that Pokemon. In this example, it's going to be Pikachu. We now have the full URL. We'll access the request module, use the get method, and pass in that URL. This method is going to return a response object, which I will assign to response. Response is a response object. And I'm just going to print our response just to see what we're working with. Here's our response object. It has a status code. This is an HTTP status code of 200. 200 means the response was okay. Here's a few examples of response codes. You're probably familiar with 404, not found. Codes. The response was okay. Here's a few examples of response codes. Was okay. Okay. Here's a few examples of response codes. You're probably familiar with 404, not found. So we are looking for 200. The response is okay. After we get our response, I'll add an if statement. If our response object does have an attribute of status code to read what the status code is. If this status code is equal to 200, that means the response is okay. But for now, I'll write pass. Else, I'm going to print the following. Else, I'm going to print failed to retrieve data, and I will print the status code of the response object. So temporarily, I will print data retrieved if it was successful. I can't spell. Okay. We have our data. Data was retrieved. If our status code of our response object is equal to 200, I will take our response object and use the JSON method. Our response is a JSON format. Using this method, we'll convert it to a Python dictionary. It will consist of key-value pairs, much like a JSON file. But I'm going to assign that to a variable of Pokemon data, so it's easier to work with. And then I will print our Pokemon data. So here's the data on Pikachu. It's really difficult to read all this. You can see some keywords. We have abilities, base experience, data. Back to the place where we call this function. And I will store that as a variable. Pokemon info equals get Pokemon info, pass in a Pokemon's name. And now we should have a dictionary that we can work with. Let me zoom out. If if that dictionary of Pokemon data, back to the place where we call this function, and I will store that as a variable. Pokemon info equals get Pokemon info, pass in a Pokemon's name. And now we should have a dictionary that we can work. With. Let me zoom out. If our dictionary exists, we can use the if keyword. If Pokemon info, if that's true. If it exists, this will be true. I will print the following. I'll use an F string. To access the value of a dictionary, we can access it by a key. We'll take our dictionary of Pokemon info, access the key of name. Let's see what happens exactly. We get Pikachu. Let's get Pikachu's ID number. We will access the key of ID. 4. I don't know what unit of measurement they use in that franchise. 4 feet or 4 inches? I don't know. Let's get Pikachu's weight. Pikachu's weight is 60 pounds, 60 kilograms, I don't know. Just to make this look nice, I'm going to add name, ID, height, and weight. That looks much better. Let's pick a different Pokemon. I will pick my favorite Pokemon of Typhlosion. Failed to retrieve data. Does that have to be a lowercase t? Yes, it does. Okay.